Thanks, everyone. Yeah, this is a talk I gave at CodeCamp. If you're there at CodeCamp, it's going to be exactly the same, so I apologize for that. But thanks to Jordan for asking me to speak about this. I hope this is relevant to some of you. But yeah, let's get into it. So this talk is about if you're kind of senior now, if you're interested in jumping to staff or beyond, yeah, what you're going to do and why do you want to do it, right? But yeah, just a quick plug. I remember 3 years ago I was talking at Rail, or it was called Ruby Wellington. I was talking about Bundler and how I was trying to hack Bundler to add checksums to it. So good news, in Bundler 2.6 you can now have checksums in your log file. So hey, go use it. Yeah, and just last week I managed to convert GitLab to actually use it as well. That's awesome. Cool. Here's a quick stat. Just to bears in reality. According to levels.fyi, in a given company, about 10% or less are staff engineers or more. So I presume everyone's an engineer here or some description. Or are there any kind of other roles? Everyone's an engineer, I suppose. Yeah. You're a support engineer as well, I suppose?
No, I'm like a support.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Okay, hopefully this talk is maybe relevant, but if not, give me a shout. So I'll be talking about engineers, but staff engineers and so on, but it might be applicable to other roles as well. These days, there's staff product managers, staff support teams, who knows. Yeah, but specifically in terms of like the engineering track, in terms of careers, this talk is more about that. So that's why this statistic is about staff engineers. So like given that statistic, right, you kind of want to maximize your chances, and hopefully this will give some tips as well. So the nutshell to kind of TLDR immediately is that to become a good staff engineer is all about your skills, your technical skills, and also your leadership. So it's kind of like how a staff engineer, you are trying to kind of create some results, you're trying to get people to do stuff for you, but you're not a manager. You don't have the explicit authority to order people around. So that is why leadership is very, very important. It's that whole authority without influence thing. Not that engineers these days order people much as well. It's all about servant leadership as well. But for staff engineers, it's doubly so because you don't even have that authority to start with. So let's keep breaking down further. Like what do I mean by kind of the leadership and the technical skills that make up to be a good staff engineer? So let's start with leadership. So what is leadership, right? Leadership, to keep things simple, is all about the people, leading people to the relevant goal that you want to achieve. So ideally, it's a goal that everyone shares, right? And even better, it's a goal that the company wants to achieve. And there might be side goals and stuff like that, but it's sort of like leading everyone towards the same goal. That's kind of what leadership is in a nutshell. So, yeah, I already talked about that. The idea of being a good leader is that you want to lead everyone towards a common goal, or not kind of like 5 different goals all at once. And every like person A has their goal A, person B has their goal B, and person C might have their goal C. That might be fine as long as everyone's kind of like aligning, rowing in the same boat. It wouldn't do if some people want to row upriver and some of you want to row downriver, right? So that's not efficient. And as I was kind of hinted at, these days leadership is really, for effective leadership, it's all about 99% guidance. Even United States Navy Admiral admits as much. Like even in the Navy, it's less about ordering and more about guidance to be an effective leader. Why? Because you don't want your people, your team, just waiting for you to babysit, to give them instructions every single step of the way. I have kids, and if you think about it, that's the exact same kind of problem as well. Your goal is to be able to kind of nurture them to be able to independently achieve the goals that they set for themselves or the goals you set for them, right? And within a modern organization, this is like absolutely true. Like the old days of like micromanaging is probably not as effective anymore. Good leadership is also situational as well. Yes, it's like 99% guidance, but let's just say in a situation where we're all on fire, do you try and guide everyone out gently? No, you just yell, go this way, right? If you are the warder in charge, for example. Other situations, like say a SEF1 incident, for example, you might want to be the one kind of providing the solution and not wait for people to be guided towards the solution, right? If you already have that thought in mind. I mean, you might still be open to other ideas, but yeah, your leadership style has to be adjusted to the situation at hand, right? Depending on what the reality is. So as a staff engineer, here are some kind of leadership skills that myself, as a staff engineer, have done. I'm actually a principal engineer, but it's kind of the same thing. In the industry, we call staff engineers and staff plus. So if I say that, that's what I mean. So anything from setting clear goals to creating a map, to coaching, mentoring, delegating, handling conflicts, prioritization. Yeah, have a think about what kind of leadership skills you might need in all these kinds of activities. And I would kind of posit to you, it's a lot about agreeing with the other person, where you want to head to, and also guiding them towards that place you want to head to as well, in all of these leadership activities. Cool. So if we kind of map up your expected amount of leadership skills and expected amount of technical skills, you can kind of see junior engineer role and intermediate senior and then senior, sort of like steadily progressing, increasing your technical skills, ramping it up, and there's a little bit of leadership skills, right? I would posit that when you get the staff, if you want to get the staff, you kind of need to be at the top of the game with technical skills, and also you need to be kind of pretty good up there with in terms of expected leadership skills as well. So how does that look like in practice as a staff engineer? So before I kind of jump into that, I kind of want to kind of explain a little bit like the traditional ladder for those of you who are not familiar. So the traditional kind of career ladder, you start from juniors, intermediate, and senior. And then at this point, you kind of have a crossroad. Do you want to become a manager, or do you want to continue being an individual contributor along these lines, right? So that's kind of usually what happens. And here are some common titles, like beyond staff, it's a little bit hazy, there's no standard. Some companies even swap this around. They call this the principal engineer, they call that the staff engineer, you know. There's no real standard, so you have to look at your own company and yeah, hopefully they have published job descriptions as well. So that's kind of the traditional thing, but in my experience, I would think of your own career. I encourage you to think of your own career as more of a series of trails. You might start from senior and go down, I can't remember what mountain it is. I think this is Norho and this is the Thong Kuah Rail crossing. But it's up to you to kind of choose which trail you want to go to in your career, right? Like if you decide to go to staff and that's not for you, you might double back and go down the manager route instead, and vice versa, right? There's no rule that says that you must stick to one path. It's your life, it's your career. And in my own career to date as well, I have kind of traversed some of this already too. And it's been enjoyable. There's no kind of like law that says you must stick to this path and you must be typecast. And I think in the age of AI these days, like a lot of managers are kind of feeling the pull as well, even more so now. So and vice versa, right? So yeah. Okay, so I talked about a little bit about the career path. So let's talk about why we need staff engineers in the first place. So in a kind of typical New Zealand company, I think the average size is about 2 or something like that. That was a 20-year stat though, don't quote me on that. So it might seem a little bit less relevant to some of you potentially, and that is true. And that's, I think one of the reasons why staff engineers exist, the role exists, is because of scale. So when you get to like 150, 200 engineers, you kind of want to start specializing in certain things. And this is why you have a staff engineer to specialize in things. You can't rely entirely on your manager to kind of be across all the little technical details and also have to handle people and have to handle payroll as well. So that is kind of the reason that why staff engineers exist. I found this really cool picture, by the way, of the JWST. This is all the people that worked in the JWST, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, so here are some example activities of what a staff engineer might do. I might write a design document or ADRs. What is an ADR? Architecture decision record. Might bootstrap a new project, investigate some crazy concurrency bug, interview, mentor, you know. So it's a mix of coding and interviewing and leadership, you know, soft skills as it were. But again, I kind of encourage you to think about all these things in terms of leadership, right? Why am I even doing all these activities? Is it because I want to scratch an itch, or what is the goal I'm trying to reach, right? And that is kind of how I think about things when I'm in staff engineer mode. I don't just do these things. Yes, I do these things for fun, but more importantly, I do these things to reach a goal, right? And most of the time, the goal is about making sure that that I want to reach people with the information that I'm presenting, or I'm actually reaching people directly with whatever that I'm doing with that. So just connecting back that to the leadership part. Cool. So different organizations will have different types of people in it, and they will be in different businesses, different industries, and there will be different countries, and they might be in different stages of life. There might be a startup or very well-established company. So they all will have different needs. So it corresponds that you will have very different types of staff engineers as well. And as I mentioned earlier before, there's no standardized, like this is the staff engineers. Managers, yes, but not so much staff engineers. But over time, I think people have discovered 4 common archetypes, if you will, 4 types of staff engineers. And I want to kind of briefly go through it. See whether you see yourself in any of those archetypes. So here are the 4 archetypes, and you can find out more about them at this link. If you Google 4 staff archetypes by Will Larson, you should be able to find that. But I'll post the slides up, I guess. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so the first, we'll go through all of them, but there's tech lead, solver, architect, and right hand, and we can go through that briefly. So the first one is the tech lead. I think it's probably the most common archetype. If you enjoy solving things, if you enjoy solving problems, this is probably you. And the role of a tech lead is to basically partner with the team or the manager to finish a project or some technical thing. And I think, I don't know, who here have heard of a tech lead, the term tech lead? Yeah. It might be even a role in some cases, but a formal job title, but most of the time it's sort of an informal role. So this is the most common way to become a staff engineer, is to kind of be a tech lead for a project, succeed in the project, and be promoted to it, right? And it's really common because, as I mentioned, your team grows to a size that the manager can't keep track of all the things anymore, and they need kind of a technical expert to keep track of things, and this is where you, the potential staff engineer, comes in. And the second type is sort of similar to a tech lead, but slightly different bent. And we call this a solver. And the difference is that a solver is like a person who's parachuted into a struggling project, a huge raging burning fire, and they're deployed to solve that problem. And then once it's solved, they then go on to the next fire, right? So it's less common because of this kind of like emphasis on just solving the biggest fires, but it does exist, right, in certain organizations. And you can think about like the MacGyvers or this astronaut here, you know, that type of persona, right? And this is still a staff engineer, but they might be kind of a more hands-on staff engineer. And if you are interested in that, that might be one way. There might be one archetype that you can think about pursuing as well. Like if you're interested in solving concurrency bugs or distributed codes or stuff like that, naughty things, I think this is you, potentially. And the third common type is architect. So, like, yeah, one of the things that architect does is to make a decision on how to evolve the system as a whole. It's less common because, hey, you don't need an architect if you just have 10 people in your team. Everyone can independently make that decision. So I would say like it's only if your company has like 100 engineers or more, that's when you start to need that kind of architect to kind of think about the long-term decisions, like whether or not to use UUIDs or something like that type of decisions, right? Or whether to even share your database or how. So that's one archetype for sure. And finally, the fourth most common one. This is the one archetype I kind of most rarely been, so I probably will fumble a little bit, but so we call this the right hand, and if you watch Game of Thrones, it's kind of a little bit like that, right? The hand, but your job as the right hand is to say, okay, I've got 1,000 people in this company. I need you to go to this division and figure out why, like this newly acquired division, and figure out why they're not integrating all the systems correct. You know, they spend 6 months. What's happening here, right? So this person will need to be across not just the technical details, but also the cultural problems, the business problems, and also the people problems as well, right? And yeah, it's sort of like you got a kind of a VP or director of engineering going, yeah, I'll delegate some of this to you. It's less common. It's very, very not common in New Zealand organizations, but yeah, I've seen it in some organizations, multinationals. Cool. How am I doing for time? Oh, not too bad. Okay, almost. So have a think about which one of these archetypes you potentially lean towards, right? If you're interested to be a staff engineer or not, right? You will have preference probably, but the thing to know is that all of these archetypes can be learned. They're just skills and preferences, and yeah, but they're definitely all leadership roles. And the other thing to think about is that which ones of these archetypes your company potentially needs, right? So some companies, most companies probably need tech lead type people. Other companies probably will need the right hand type people less, right? So how do we get there? Like, is anyone a staff engineer already or not? Cool, yeah. Is anyone interested to be a staff engineer by any chance? Some? Yeah, cool. So, like, it's okay if you don't want to be a staff engineer. Though. I think it's perfectly valid. It's I would say it's a totally different role than a senior as well. So that's only one thing to think about. But if you're interested in getting there, think about your why, right? Why do you want the staff engineer? Is it because you want more money, or you want that recognition, or you want the kind of the challenging projects that come with it, right? And that should be your guiding light, right? To figure out how you want to guide it. But at the same time, consider why not as well. There are downsides to it. Like one of the most immediate things that hit everyone is you get to code way less. So if you're kind of like, I really like to code 100% of the time, maybe that's one of the things you need to think about, right? But the good news is that most staff engineers still code these days. Yeah, and there might be other downsides as well, like you're kind of scattered and everywhere. You can't kind of be heads down. So yeah. So whatever your path, I think the first thing to get to first is to get to senior first, right? If you're not senior yet, I think most people in this room are. This after Ruby. If you're not senior anyway, tell your colleagues, get to senior first before thinking about being a staff or being an engineering manager for that case, right? Because the last thing you want is to be a person in authority where you do not even have the basic prerequisite skills yet, the technical skills yet, right? That's kind of a trap. That's a big trap. You will get typecast in that role, and you probably will struggle to find another job in similar job in a different company because you're kind of stuck there, right? So that's kind of my number one thing. And then the second thing is to figure out, I think I talked about this briefly, but figure out what are the needs of the company that you're currently in or the company that you want to be hired as a staff engineer at. There's probably, hopefully there's some written material. I know New Zealand companies are pretty bad at this, but hopefully there's some job description about what that new role is. Like, yeah, different staff engineers would look different in different organizations, so really read the job description. If the job description is pretty thin or not existing, have a chat to the current staff engineers, right? And think about what they do and read about what they do as well. That probably will help. If your company publishes promotion docs, that might be a helpful source as well. I don't know whether that's common. GitLab certainly does, which is awesome. I mean, it really helps people kind of figure out why people are being promoted. And lastly, ask your manager, right? Not just they are a good source of information as well, but it also provides a very good signal to your manager to say, they can then know, hey, this person is interested, I can help them in X ways. Cool. And the next thing is demonstrating impact. So most companies will probably want you to kind of show that you're ready for the role before you're even promoted. So how do you kind of demonstrate that kind of impact? Here are kind of some few impacts, but whatever the kind of suggest kind of example things are, the impact that you want to show needs to be appreciable. And what it means by that is that the impact needs to lead to some concrete, like real business results that the business actually cares about, right? So if you kind of refactored the whole code base internally, but your business doesn't care about it, it might be great for you, but I don't think it probably will lead nowhere towards your promotion story. So that's definitely one thing. So yes, look for cross-team improvements. Yes, look for org-wide improvements that will improve the whole company. But you need to think about whether or not that improvement will lead to some impact that's actually appreciated by your manager and other colleagues and your company's leaders. I won't talk much about the staff projects. That's a term. That's some things that's a project that companies do. Some companies do to kind of before you can promote. It's like a staff level complexity project. But I'm not sure these days that's really relevant. But you might come across that at some point. If you Google that, you can find out more about that. So in your promotion kind of blurb, like you might say, I did this, I led, I initiated, I completed. The kind of chicken and egg question that always comes out is, how can I show that I'm a staff engineer if I'm a kind of senior engineer, but I don't have the time / capability to be a staff engineer, right? Isn't that kind of chicken and egg where I need to be the thing before I can promote it, but how can they do that, right? And the short answer is that you can show it without actually being the leader 100% of the time. It's okay for you to be a collaborator. It's okay for you to be the finisher. It's okay for you to be the one starting it, right? It's what's important. What leaders are looking for in potential other future leaders is that they have shown some capability and interest towards that goal, right? Towards that kind of role. And that you will be happy in that role as well, right? So it wouldn't do if you, all your achievements are just kind of, I just followed what everyone else's plan and I achieved this, right? That's not what they're looking for. So what they're looking for is some of it, but not all of it. That's kind of my answer to that question, if that makes sense, right? Oh, so in other words, you want to be a technical leader. So to recap, I probably went a bit fast. I thought I only had 30 minutes, but that's fine. We can talk about questions if you like. So to recap, you want to know your why before you become a staff engineer. Or if you're a current staff engineer and you want to be a good staff engineer, think about your why again. I think it might be a useful reflection. You definitely want to learn the skills, both the technical skills and the leadership skills. And to get there, you want to achieve goals that your company appreciates, or your leadership appreciates, or your colleagues. And yeah, you want to show that you will probably succeed as a technical leader. That's how you get there. Cool. Here's some of my favorite resources, favorite books. So these first two books, one is about being a staff engineer and how to be a good one. And the other one is about leadership, starting with why. That's pretty awesome. And there's a few other great books as well. Yeah. It's cool. Yeah, I wish you well on your path. Thank you. You can reach me at LinkedIn or Google me up. That's me on LinkedIn, by the way. Yeah. The time is the pizza here yet? Oh, not yet.
13 more minutes.
Cool.
Yep, I got one. I'm interested to hear what's a day in the life, staff engineer at GitLab, right?
Yep. Yeah, a day in the life. So I think there's about 50 other staff engineers. So this is kind of one slice, personally. But I spend a lot of time these days reviewing design documents or ADRs. That's one. And then secondly is there's a bit of, I'm involved in a very huge long-running project. There's 4 different parts to it, 4 different teams. So there's a bit of kind of figuring out, looking in their GitLab issues and GitLab epics, figuring out what their progress is so far, where they're tracking, and whether or not they hit any roadblocks. If they hit any roadblocks, then it's time to chat to them briefly on Slack, or maybe arrange a meeting to talk about it further. And last week, I was spending time compiling a document so that we can accelerate a project faster, if you will, and all the different options and all the different things that needs to be done, not just across the 4 teams that I'm working with, but also 10 other teams that I would like them to do as well. So a lot of answering questions, a lot of asking questions. And then figuring out, thinking about what's the best, most high leverage activity that I can do next to achieve my goal. And to keep myself sane, I just stick to 2 goals at most. I don't try to have 6 different goals in my mind. So I can name you right now, my 2 goals right now is scalability and improving what we call organizations, which is a way to segment customers, GitLab customers, into their own little tenant things. But yeah, otherwise it'd be really hard to figure out what's going on. Yeah, hope that makes sense.
It's a bit of pull, the teams that you're working with being you've got a hard nut to crack, and as well as you kind of overseeing things and looking kind of proactively for opportunities to help.
Correct. Yeah. But it's not just me. I have to work with I try to work with the managers of those teams as well, make sure they're aware of what I'm doing. I'm not just going there stealthily, just shuffling everything under the decks. Yeah, there's a lot of communication as well. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So have you ever, so you mentioned one of the roles was a solver. Have you ever worked as a solver? And what was the stress level of putting out the fire? Or what was the situation there? Is there, and you have any experiences with that?
Yeah. I'm more of a tech lead person, to be transparent. So I like a big long project and cutting it down and going, what's the most value we can deliver today, right? As a solver, yeah, there's been cases where I think I'm trying to think back to the last fire. So there's been a few security incidents that I've been involved in, and purely I've been jumping in because it looked urgent and it seems like it's fun, right? So the stress level wasn't that high because it's just fun, but most of the time it's all about stabilizing the situation and coming out with something that will mitigate the impact. And then once you're done, there's a ton of follow-up work that you need to do, but I don't think you get to do them because I have to jump to the next thing. So what you need to do is, what I needed to do was fix the thing, get it past code review, and then follow the process to kind of release it or whatever, and then write up kind of learnings and impacts and follow-ups, and then try and convince people to kind of address those follow-ups, right, if you will. Because what happened is that the fire came back again, surprise, surprise. So that was a little bit stressful. So being able to say, hey, this happened again, it was kind of useful, I guess. So let's do it. Let's make sure we follow up and So that's one example, I guess. Yeah. But it's definitely annoying. You have to keep jumping and things like that. Yeah. So now, question? Yeah.
How do you resolve the conflicts of either people, departments, or even priorities? What tools do you have to resolve conflicts?
What tools? Yeah, I'm probably not the best person for this. I don't like conflicts. Let's just say most conflicts I encounter are not a personal type, right? So that's one caveat, right? Most conflicts are about choosing a technical decision, and that's much easier to solve. And the simple answer is, okay, let's go make a little proof of concept to figure it out. So now you have more data, and then you can answer that kind of thing. The harder conflicts, like interpersonal conflicts or questions of making decisions when you have to make decisions without much data, you have to make decisions now versus later. Those are much, much harder to solve. And I think you really have to follow your own set of values and also be open to communicating with whoever, whether you're in conflict with someone or you're the mediator. You have to be open to whatever they're communicating, for sure. And also, one of the things at GitLab is that we have kind of 6 core values, right? There's collaboration, results, and things like that. So follow your own set of values, whatever they may be. Might be personal values or company values for these things. I think it's really, really useful. It probably serves as a kind of a voice in your head, I guess, to help you in these kinds of stressful situations. Yeah.
You mentioned we like the progression for staff. Yes, granted it's not particularly well defined, as you said. Yep. But what would you say is the main differentiating factor between regular staff and say senior staff?
Uh-huh. Yeah, this one. You get more and more into PowerPoint and documents, and less codes. Yeah, and more. Yeah, and meetings and things like that. Yeah. So. Not that you're not technical. As my manager was telling me the other day, I think once you reach staff, you kind of reach all the height of your technical skills. From then on, it's all about communication and leadership and influencing people. That's why it's there. I mean, you still have to code at some point. I think I had a distinguished engineer, like they've been spending 2-3 months writing a proof of concept for a new authorization system, right? They had to learn Zanzibar and that kind of stuff. CEDA, I believe, right? So they'll still be doing some coding, but more in proof of concepts rather than implementing full systems, if you will. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's not a straight path and you can choose your own adventure. You talked about like Green Mountain and one of those options was manager. I was curious if you ever was an engineering manager in the past, and we think that those skills or leadership experiences was useful if someone wanted to transition back to like that individual contributor or an IC role.
Yes, very good question. Yes, I was an engineering manager for 2 years. And actually that is very, very useful skills, right? Because you actually learn about conflict resolution, you actually learn about all the different leadership styles. You actually get formal training on how to coach people. Like I actually went to a couple of courses. All those skills are really, really useful when you when I switched back to become a staff and I had to maybe mentor junior engineers or convince someone to do this thing. Those are all really invaluable skills for sure. Yeah. I wouldn't say highly recommend because being a manager is not for everyone. But you know, there is this very famous blog post by charity majors called The Pendulum. Yeah, there's people who do that. They just swing back and forth. They become a manager out of necessity. I subscribe to that. The best managers are people who are forced into it. And then they get tired because it's really mentally draining. And they switch back to being an IC, individual contributor. Yeah. Thank you.